What is up, guys? Welcome back to Flow State. And unfortunately, again, it is just me today. So you guys are going to have to put up with me chatting for the next maybe 45 minutes to an hour. Adam apologizes. He's away enjoying, in fact, no, he doesn't apologize. Adam is enjoying a wonderful time on holidays. He has been enjoying Spain and now is back in Ireland, I do believe. I hope he doesn't mind me telling you guys. I'm sure he wouldn't. But yeah, he's enjoying some holiday time with family. So today it is up to me to give you another solo episode, but it works quite nicely. Obviously, for those that don't know, last time we spoke, we were in the road to Run Melbourne, and then last weekend I had the race proper. So what I can do is kind of go over a bit of a race recap for you the day prior, go through what I did, and then I can even talk about recovery and the plan from here, because obviously, as wonderful as racing is, like when you're someone that does do racing semi frequently, it's never just the one race. You're always looking to the future. So I thought it might be quite, let's say, insightful to maybe go over my plans from here and talk about how I'm structuring, I guess, my training with my coach going into my next couple of races, and then of course the Melbourne Marathon, which is in about 3 months' time. So um, as always, just want to start by again saying thank you to everyone who's tuned in to watch. I do appreciate we've been a little bit sporadic these last few weeks, this last month. And yeah, look, we are people. We do have time off. We have full-time jobs. So appreciate you hanging in there with us. And I'm hoping that I'm going to deliver a absolutely wild podcast for you guys to make it fully worth your while. So yeah, let's get into it. Where did we leave off? So I spoke to you guys about 2 weeks ago. We were a week out from the Run Melbourne Half Marathon, and it was, as I've been kind of talking to a lot of people, I think it was one of those situations where, because post Ballarat, I really only had probably 2, maybe 3 weeks of full interrupted training since, right? And that was now going back kind of 10 weeks, really. I was meant to do the 10K back in early June, and because of the injury, I was forced to scrap that one, and I lost kind of 2 weeks of running to that same injury. And then it was a case of building back up the mileage and really kind of training in a little bit of pain, because I was in pain and I have been in pain up until last, I want to say this Monday, actually. Like, I'll come on to the race itself and how I managed it during that. But realistically, I haven't been pain free for quite a while, and that obviously held me back somewhat. So what this really did is it took away a lot of the pressure and expectation for me around Run Melbourne, which was, I think, the like kind of cutting to the chase a little bit, but I think that was the best thing that could have happened, because especially in my first couple of races, like the first half marathon I did back in September 24, and then the 5K as well, that was, I want to say March or April, maybe, no, it was early March, and then to a lesser extent the Ballarat Marathon. I put a lot of pressure on myself to really try and achieve, or I guess overachieve, and get absolutely everything I could out the run. And while I think this helped push me during the run itself, and it kind of acted as motivation, I think it took a lot in terms of the recovery aspect. I don't think I was sleeping as well as I could have done. I think it was just adding a lot of stress where stress wasn't necessarily needed. And since then, so Ballarat, obviously I did have a sub 3 hour goal, but I kind of was changing the way I was looking at it, in a sense of, well, my main goal here is to finish the marathon, because I've never done a marathon before. It's a massive undertaking, like it really is, even for experienced marathon runners, right? Just crossing the line is in itself an achievement. So I had that as my A goal, and then the sub 3 hour was almost a secondary goal that was a bit of a bonus. And I definitely think that allowed me to get the most out of that marathon, because even in the week up to it, I had like fantastic sleep. I wasn't super stressed. I was just kind of enjoying training, enjoying the taper. And then I obviously got the goal as a result. And so obviously having this last period of time, or these last few weeks, I should say, where I haven't had the best run up. I had the injury. I did get sick. I think it was probably 3 weeks out. And that sickness kind of lingered for an entire week. And it really affected my training, in that the training wasn't good quality. I was probably pushing myself more than I needed to. And chances are I probably wasn't recovering from the training I was doing anyway. So although I did get a lot of the mileage in and I didn't really lose too many runs, the quality of that training was poor. So I think, all that being said, I was just like, look, my main goal again, is to finish the race, like pain free. Primarily would be nice, but just kind of not blow up or not have any major issues. And the second goal for me was simply just to PB. And when I say PB, I'm not thinking like I didn't want to like do anything groundbreaking per se, but given that the first half marathon I did was back in September last year, I've since been working with a coach. I've since run a sub 3 hour marathon. I still, even with the kind of subpar training, I still expected to PB. So let's say that race, I think I want to say it was 85:40 something off the top of my head. I would have been happy with an 85 flat, or even maybe a 24, an 84 high would have been absolutely fine, right? So I think first off, that helped a lot, and that kind of lack of stress or lack of pressure did a lot for me in the week running up. And yeah, I think now obviously I want to talk so that was the run up, right? I'm going to kind of jump around a little bit because it's my podcast and I can do what I want. But if we then kind of fast forward to the day before, I also think this might be beneficial because I know a few of you guys are kind of maybe on the brink of starting to race, or maybe you've only done a couple of races so far. It might also be quite insightful to listen to what I do the day before a race. I know that I find it really interesting to hear what other people do. And yeah, maybe you won't kind of do what I do step for step, but you might take some ideas, and heck, that might help you on your next race. So that would be lovely. Well, yeah. So this is that. So the taper, obviously I tapered pretty standard as to what me and my coach have done in the 3 races we've done together now, whereby I kind of drop my volume across the week and start to reduce a little bit of intensity. So the last kind of actual workout session I had was on the Wednesday prior to the race. And that was kind of spending some time starting around kind of my LT1 and then dropping down to some quicker, like faster than LT2 intervals, shorter intervals. And as far as I can remember, there was even some closer to kind of VO2 max, like intervals, talking 30 seconds to a minute, which was actually really good fun. Or maybe that was the week before. God, fantastic podcasting here. But either way, kind of we did some LT1, LT2 intervals on that Wednesday before, but kept the workload relatively light. And those kind of sessions are really just to make sure the body doesn't forget how to run fast, because in that taper week, you're obviously doing less volume, less intensity, but you don't want to get rid of it altogether because you might lose that edge, you lose that sharpness. So the idea is to just make sure you're doing just enough. It's not going to necessarily give you anything to adapt to, but it's going to tell the nervous system that, okay, we're still doing something quick, so that when you go into the race, it's not a complete shock. It's not completely alien. So did that on Wednesday, and then the volume tapered off Thursday, and we moved my rest day to Friday to allow for a little shakeout on Saturday, which is what I've done for all my runs, my races with my coach David so far, and it's worked pretty well, to be honest. So we did that, and Friday felt really good. Saturday morning, woke up feeling pretty good again. Like the run itself, the shakeout, it was only like 20 minutes with a few strides, but I did notice that I was getting kind of pain in my foot. And I was on anti-inflammatories at this time just to try and get on top of any pain and make sure that it didn't hold me back at all. Because what was happening is where I was still having some minor heel issues. I was changing the way I was running, and that was causing the top of the foot, the kind of the medial side portion of the foot, to just get a little bit pissed off, and it was a little bit painful, almost like something was rubbing. But obviously the pain was internal, so I didn't feel too crash hot coming off the back of that shakeout, but I tried to just like push it to the back of my mind and not get too worried about it, because that wasn't at this point going to do me much good. And then on the day, so this would have been more, if I was doing a marathon, I'd be a little bit more rigid and a bit more structured in how I ate. But my plan always is to start tapering down fiber, because my diet is quite high in fiber, especially things like salads, cruciferous vegetables. And for anyone that runs knows, you don't want to have heaps of fiber sitting in your stomach during a run, because it sits heavy and it kind of just, it digests quite slow and can slow down that digestion process. And yes, fiber is fantastic, and 99% of the time you want to have heaps of fiber, but prior to a race, you want to cut down a little bit, just so you can be as empty and as light as possible on race day. So this started for me Friday evening, and then Saturday I had very little compared to what I normally have. So little things like maybe where in the morning I would have a heap of oats and protein powder. I had less oats, and I sub it out with cornflakes, because you're getting more kind of bang for your buck in terms of straight carbs, just without the protein and the fats. And I also love cornflakes. Like, that is definitely my carb loading, carb off choice, I've realized. So had that, and then same with lunch and dinner. I still had a little bit of greens for lunch, just because it helps kind of bulk out the meal, and I don't need to get rid of fiber completely. It's just about tapering down. And then I made sure I just had, again, I subbed out a lot of the protein and fats I'd normally have for extra carbs. So I threw in like rice in there. I was snacking on rice cakes during the day, and yeah, maybe a little bit of fruit. I don't go too heavy on fruits. I'm not used to, because again, you never know how it's going to digest and how you're going to feel afterwards. But I know I had maybe an extra banana, had cornflakes after that meal as well. And yeah, was just kind of just snacking on the carb things all day, really. I know I'm probably in a surplus for the day in terms of calories, but again, because you're carb loading, because you know you're probably going to be in a deficit the day after, you can get away with kind of consuming more calories than you normally would. Just don't go too overboard, because again, you don't want to be super full on race day. And then dinner's probably the lightest meal of the day, and definitely the most boring, because I literally just had a plate of, had one of the Tilda rice packets, which I don't know why, but for anyone that that frequents rice, the Tilda rice bags, or even Uncle Ben's, is it Uncle Ben's, or is it, I think it's called something different here. I think it's Uncle Ben's. It's Uncle Ben's. Sorry, I've got my missus sitting next to me, and she's my Adam in this instance. So again, Adam's normally in the background typing things up as we're talking, and I don't have that today. So thanks. She's literally looking it up. How good is that? Thank you. Yeah, so Uncle Ben's or Tilda, it just tastes better than fresh rice. And I know I'm going to get some backlash for this, for rice controversy, but yeah, Tilda rice bags are elite. They are apex. And I had two. Yeah, I had two on that Saturday, and I have no regrets. And so that was basically dinner, and I had maybe a little bit of tofu, as far as I can remember. Again, just super light, super familiar, very bland. And I finished off again with a bowl of cornflakes, because cornflakes slap. Like, they really slap. Very underrated cereal, especially for carb loading. So my key takeaways here are: keep it familiar, taper down the fiber, the fats, and the protein. And yeah, my go-to are definitely rice and cornflakes. I think I mentioned on Instagram before the marathon that I was experimenting with my carbs, and I tried pasta once. I literally just had a massive bowl of pasta for dinner. And the morning after on my long run, it did not sit well. And yeah, I'm not saying I'm not one of these people that's like, oh, I'm gluten intolerant or whatever, but gluten definitely is harder to digest than things like rice and corn. So just be careful if you're going with pasta because it doesn't digest as well. And there's a little bit more fiber as well. So just be careful with that. And the last thing, just make sure. So for me, before a race, I like to switch off screens a little bit earlier than I normally would, just to make sure I get the best sleep. But unfortunately, this didn't go exactly to plan. Although I did switch off my phone. I put it on flight mode pretty early. I went to bed at a good time and I got to sleep okay. And to be honest, the sleep I got was actually fantastic. But the issue is, so I went to bed, I was probably asleep by maybe 7:30. I'm pretty good at falling asleep. I just kind of get into bed, read a book, and I'm out normally within 5 or 10 minutes. And this was the same, like no complaints. But what happened is I woke up, according to my watch, because I did check my watch. I woke up at 2:15, and I kind of was like, "Oh, it's middle of the night. I can just go back to sleep. I don't have to get up until." I think I set my alarm for 3:45 because the race was 6:30 start, and we've spoken about this in the past, where most races in Melbourne are 8 a.m. start. But because this is right in the heart of the center of Melbourne, I'm guessing they had to do it as early as possible to get people finished up, because they also had other races. You had a 10 and a 5K, and they didn't want people overlapping. Yeah, we were 6:30 start for the priority or the elite group. And for me, I like to give myself as much time as possible prior to starting the race to like eat and get warmed up, even at home, and just kind of be relaxed and settled, as opposed to waking up at 5:30 or 5 o'clock, rushing out of bed, like smashing down food and then starting within an hour. That just wouldn't go well for me. So I was planning on getting up 4:45. And so here I am, 2:15, got up, went to the toilet, got back into bed, and I could feel that there was excitement there. It was a little bit of anxiety, but it was definitely like excitement first and foremost. And I was kind of tossing and turning and just going, oh man, it's so early. I hope I can get to sleep. And then eventually I gave up. I looked at my watch again and it was 3 o'clock. And I was like, look, this ain't happening. I've got 45 minutes here. I'm just getting more and more awake. I just need to bite the bullet and get up. And so I did, got up. Because it was so early, I could afford to have coffee. Normally, if I'm too close to a run, I probably wouldn't have coffee because it is a diuretic and I piss like a racehorse at the best of times. And post coffee, that's not a good idea, especially if you're racing, because look, even if it takes 30 seconds to go to the toilet in a race, that's a lot of time. That is a lot of time. Like that's the difference between an okay finish and a good finish. So I was, yeah, I wouldn't have done, but because I was up so early, I was like, look, I've got like 3.5 hours till I need to start. I can definitely afford myself a cheeky double espresso, and it was really good. It really hit the spot, especially at 3 a.m. And so I enjoyed that. I watched a little bit of YouTube. Again, I'm trying to keep off my phone at this time because I don't want too much of that kind of dopamine stimulation from Instagram. So I just watched a little bit of YouTube, a little bit of TV, did some stretching, had more cornflakes, funnily enough. That was my breakfast of choice. And just made sure I had everything ready, went through my checklist. So again, good tip for anyone out there who's racing is have a checklist, write it up maybe a week before. And then I just tick off things I need to do the day before and the morning of, things like little things like cut your nails, cut your toenails, pack your stuff, make sure you've got your bib, make sure you've shaved. Like you want to shave your legs, man, aerodynamic, shave in seconds, right? Little things like that. So I went through my checklist, made sure everything was packed, and then I could just basically warm up and relax and get as calm as possible prior to driving down, because we're about half an hour out from the city. So it was quite a nice morning, actually. Enjoyed a few hours to myself, just preparing, and did a little bit of meditation, all that good stuff. And then we ended up leaving to get to The race at about 5 o'clock, like I said, it was about half an hour, 40 minutes to get to where all the arenas are in Melbourne. And for anyone that hasn't been to Melbourne, there's like a collection of kind of tennis courts and arenas right in the center of the city. And this is where the race start was. So really good area. Like, yeah, it's nice, I suppose. And because it's that early in the morning, like there was no issue getting parking and traffic was pretty okay. So ended up, I think we got to or like 2 minutes from the start line at about, it would have been about just before 6. So that gave me kind of 10-15 minutes to do my static warm up. And then I always go for a 10 to 15 minute jog and do some strides beforehand. I probably shouldn't divulge this, but I think it's important to be transparent with you guys. I'm not someone that wants to stand in line waiting for the toilet, especially when there's 25,000 other people doing the same before a race, because I don't want to risk getting cold. And two, it's going to make me anxious thinking, okay, I need to get to the start line. So me and look, I'm not the only one that did this, but there was a few other lads that were kind of finding various trees and bushes to do number ones in. Like definitely no number twos, guys. Come on, can't do that. There's 25,000 other people around. Don't want to get in trouble. And it's illegal, I'm being told by my independent adjudicator. Thank you. So, in fact, if it's illegal, that may or may not have happened. I cannot confirm or deny if that happened, but hypothetically it happened. And yeah, but if you need to go, you need to go. And if you can't wait, like I'm sure they wouldn't mind that much. No one's getting hurt, right? So that happened. And then I try and just make sure I've been to the toilet with about 15 minutes to go of any race. That's probably a good time. And then I'm warmed up at this point, kind of finding my way to the start line. And this is where things got. So I'm just going to I'm just going to story tell from this point, really. Just kind of take you through what happened and give you a journey through my morning. So to rewind it a little bit, for this particular race, it's done in corrals. So same as most big races, is they ask you when you're signing up if you have a kind of a goal in mind or where your kind of rough estimate for your time is. And I was put into, because I was aiming for a sub 85 minutes, I was put into the priority group, which I like to call the elite group, because that's where the elites are. They're right at the very front. And yes, I was at the back of the group, like not literally, I was literally at the back of the group, but come on to that in a sec. But I was at the back of the group because obviously I was just aiming to scrape that time, and I hadn't actually done that time, right? So my previous half marathon was 85:40 something. So I actually had to send evidence that I thought I would be able to do the 85 or lower. Going off the back of my marathon time, that was fine. So yeah, so it was done in corrals, and the start line was obviously quite long. So there's a lot of people doing this. This was the main race of the morning, and I couldn't find a way in to get into the corral. And the fences they had were super flimsy, and I was like, look, if I try and jump this fence, I'm going to make a right tit of myself because it's going to fall over and there's a lot of people around and I'm nervous and it's not a good idea. So I was basically like just jogging up the line of people, just looking for anywhere to get in. And I was like, once I'm in, I can just find my way up and it'll be fine. I'll just kind of weave and go. And eventually I got to said spot. I found an opening that someone else had made. And I was like, yeah, sick. I'm in. I don't think I'm too far from the front because it was the A group. And then I forgot. I was like, technically I'm not in A, I'm in P for priority. So I was like, okay, this is where I'm going to have to start weaving. And yeah, like I said, there was many thousands of people doing this race, and A was bigger than I was expecting. So I was weaving for a few minutes and feeling a little bit silly. And then I got to the very front of the A group, and there was another fence blocking. So where there was fences at the side, and for anyone who's listening, I'm making gestures with my hand, but you can see it. But so if I try and describe it, better for podcasting, I suppose. There was these like I said, fences to the side, and then there was a fence blocking off the front between the next group. And I was like, oh damn, that's suboptimal, because they're released at different times. So if I know it's chip time that matters, and technically, even if I went out in the A group, I'd still get the time I get. But the goal is I wanted to be following the 85-minute pacer. And so I was like, I need to get into the next group. It's the group I'm meant to be in. So I had to kind of weave through the fences and duck around some more people and get into that priority group. I got there. In my head, it was a lot more stressful than it sounds when I'm saying it out loud. But it was, believe me, it was stressful. And bearing in mind my heart rate, I actually saw the heart rate data for this. My heart rate was probably about 160 at this point, because the race is about to start. I'm kind of freaking out because I'm in the wrong group, and I needed to be with that pacer. But I got there and all was well. I got there with about 5 minutes to go. The first lot went off. Like the wheelchair athletes went off first, and yeah, then we went at bang on 6:30, so bang on time. It was fantastic. And again, my race plan, for anyone that missed the episode a couple of weeks ago, was, like I said, to go out with the 85-minute pacer. And I'm always in the back of my head going, well, look, if it feels too fast, I can always drop off. And if it feels too slow, I can always push on. Yeah, push on. Because that's what I did at Ballarat. I went out with the 3-hour pacer, and I think it was about 25. No, it was earlier than that. I think it was about 20K. I was like, I've got more to give than this. And I went on and I got my sub 3 hour, very happy. And so that was the plan with this as well. But I wasn't really expecting to go much faster than that 85-minute pacer, just off the back of everything that happened. So my plan was just to keep up with him for as long as possible. I knew there'd be a pack around him as well, which always helps. And if I needed to pull back a little bit, whatever, it's about finishing the race and getting that stimulus, right? So we set off. It was, again, 6:30 in the morning. It's winter here, so it's pitch black, but you had a beautiful, beautiful view of the city of Melbourne. And I think that's something else that really helped me for the race, is that I'm very familiar with Melbourne CBD. I worked there for the best part of 3.5 years, and I just really love the city. So it was almost reassuring to have that cityscape in front of me, and know where we were running, and just feel really familiar, because that kind of first, I want to say 2-3K, like typically it can feel quite stressful because you're trying to settle into your pace. There's a lot of people at that point because the pack hasn't had a chance to thin out or spread. And this was definitely the case, but I think because I was like, man, there's fantastic views. You've got the city that's lit up in the side. Obviously it's quiet. There's a heap of adrenaline that comes with running in a pack, and you're going pretty fast, right? So we started out about 4 minute per K pace, which is, for me, for a half marathon, that's about right. That's what I'd aim for. And yeah, I was like, yeah, this is nice having the city there. I'm feeling like I'm working hard, but it's nice. And so pushed on, pretty flat at the start as well, which was nice because you could ease into the pace and not have to get too kind of stressed out with burning your matches on the hills or anything. So went on for about 5K, still following the pacer, and it was like a big group of lads. Like there was probably about 30 boys all stuck on the 85-minute pacer, and you were kind of, just as much as anything, try not to trip over the guy in front or get rammed into bollards, because it's right in the center of the city, right? So there was people getting wiped out by bollards. So that was a bit of a thing, but ended up carrying on. And I think what ended up happening is around I think it was between 6 and 8K, there was couple of little hills, and this is typically where I do quite well because I'm very light. Even compared to Adam, I think Adam's got over 10 kilos on me. I was 63 kilos and have been for the kind of past couple of weeks. And so when it comes to hills, I normally don't really have to work that much harder because I'm not carrying a heap of body weight. Whereas some of the guys around me, like there were some big lads, even though they were quick, easy 20 kilos on me. And so what happened is the pacer was fine. The pacer was, again, having no real issue kind of tackling these hills and maintaining pace. But where I was obviously handling them better than some of the others, the pack started to thin out because you're leaving people behind. And then even on the downhills, I'm pretty good at tackling a downhill, right? So all of a sudden, I think about 7-8K, I'm with the pacer. And I'm like, yeah, I'm settled now. I'm really comfortable. I feel quite strong. I feel quite good at this point because I had a gel at the start line. I didn't have any issues with my breathing. If anything, yeah, I was like, yeah, this feels like a good kind of tempo run. And so I think I carried on for a little bit, and it was, I think before the 10K, it would have been about actually 8 or 9, maybe. The pack might have even thinned out at like 6 or 7. And then by 8 or 9, I was like, man, I'm feeling so good. I think I may have even said to myself at one stage, I was like, man, this is a great day to be running a race because I feel fantastic. I was like, I'm going to kind of open up. And what was happening was the pacer was obviously keeping pace as he's paid to do. And there was another group of boys just in front of me that obviously were having the same idea. They were like, yeah, feeling good. Let's push on. And so I think what pushed that decision from me was that there was that group that was going ahead at a slightly quicker pace, and the pacing group was getting left behind. I was like, well, I can either pull back and stay with the pacing group, I can get stuck in no man's land, or I can go with the group ahead and at least run with the pack. And I was like, look, I'm feeling fine. This could be kind of a naive decision, but it's worked well in the past. So I kind of I dug deep and I was like, yeah, let's try and go with this group ahead, and ended up being a fantastic choice because that group was like really running at quite a steady pace. And I think a lot of them were actually burning matches too quickly because over the course of the next probably 5K, I was just picking them off, right? It was going past 1, going past 2, going past 3. And yeah, that obviously does a lot for your confidence as well. And then I want to say crossing the halfway point, I had my 5K splits on, and I think the halfway point I'm just calling 20K. I knew that I was averaging quicker than 20 minutes. So I was going sub 4 minute per K for both of those 5Ks. And I was like, yep, this is great. This is feeling good. I'm on track here to beat my previous time. So basically just kind of maintained, and at this point the sun's coming up. So it's such a nice thing to have, to be running through the city and getting to see the sun come up, and that kind of like red purple sky, and it's all lit up. And at this point you're getting a bigger crowd come out as well, just along the course, because most of the run, so I'm talking I think 12K, is through the city itself, like just amongst the buildings. And then into the second half, you end up going to the Shrine of Remembrance and the Botanical Gardens in Melbourne, which is a really nice green park. And so this is where I think it would have been about kind of 14-15K, and I guess any time from the halfway point. I was like, yeah, I can definitely feel like I'm working now. I can feel that there is lactate build up there. I'm maybe not as comfortable, but my breathing's still steady. I don't feel like this is unsustainable. And the only time I was really suffering, and I say suffering lightly because it really wasn't that bad, was just if there was the odd hill or incline. And even then it was like, you get through it. The longest any of these hills were was a couple of minutes, and then you get a downhill on the other side, and you just kind of bank up the time you lost by kind of absolutely pegging it downhill. So it was all fine. And again, just kind of starting to race now, starting to overtake people and kind of do some head hunting, for want of a better term. And Yeah, I think from the halfway point, I was kind of counting down now. I was looking at the time and just going, okay, all I know is that I've got till about kind of 7:55 because I've actually got my watch at this point up. I've not got my heart rate, I've not got my pace. I've literally just got the time. And I was like, well, I know I'm aiming to finish before 7:55, and I could tell myself like, okay, half an hour left, 25 minutes left, and went on like that. I did at 15K, I did have another gel. So I had a Molten 100 on the start line, and I had one at 15K as well, just to see me over the line and help me with a little bit of recovery. And I had that, and that definitely helped. I think within, I want to say, a couple of minutes of having that Molten 100, I definitely felt like I had something else to give, whether this was placebo or more likely there probably was, the sugar probably was helping, but that definitely saw me through the next kind of 3 or 4K, because by, I want to say with about 3 or 4 to go, I was like, yeah, I'm kind of pushing here. And the fact there was some really kind of aggressive hills as well with about 3K to go. I remember one, and you can see this in my lap splits. One was just oppressive. I remember like being at the bottom and looking up and going, very briefly, I was like, man, this is make or break. But then in my head, I'm like, this is what I'm good at. I love hills. I train with hills. A lot of my long runs are quite hilly. I was like, what gets me through it is telling myself I'm better at this than someone else. And then I just repeat the words in my head. I'm like, yeah, just strong, just fight, just go to war. And it worked. Got up that hill super quick, and I was rewarded with the fastest K that I had on the day on that downhill, because I averaged, I think at one stage I was going at 3:30 per K on that downhill, which is pretty quick. And I actually paid the price for those downhills, because downhills are very high impact on the eccentric. And so your muscles get a proper beating. And I felt it like Monday and Tuesday, I was sore. And I'm 100% that was from the downhills. But either way, it allowed me to bank up heaps of time, and also felt pretty good because your aerobic system, or you're not really breathing too heavy on the downhills. It's your legs that are doing all the work. So you do get maybe 30 seconds of respite, which at that point was much needed. And then the last 2K was basically kind of finishing off around the park and then running through this area of arenas coming back to the start line. And they're real fuckers for what they did to the course, because they left like, again, some really nasty short sharp hills right till the end. And I remember running with a couple of other guys, and one of them was just like, yeah, fuck this, man, like, why have they done this? And you can't help but laugh because you're all in the pain cave at this point. And yeah, it just kind of, I don't know, you'll just share the same thought at the same time. But before I finish, I should actually give a shout out to a good friend, a running friend of mine. I believe his name is Rowan, who actually started in one of the corrals behind me, and I ran with Rowan. I hope he's listening. I hope you're listening, man, because you really helped me during this run. Because we ran together on a 5K a few months back, and really good kid. And what happened is he'd started on the corral behind me because I think he was running in someone else's bib, or he managed to get a bib last minute and didn't get in the priority group, because he was aiming for a sub 80 minutes. And basically what had happened is he had started behind me and caught up to me. So he'd made up a couple of minutes because they started a few minutes behind. And he initially passed me about halfway, and then right at the end, I kind of caught up with him, and I was like, man, this is perfect. Cause I think I literally was running next to him, and I was like, okay, you're going to pace me for the final few K. And we had a little bit of a laugh. And I mean, you're not exactly having full conversation, but you're having a bit of a chat. And we probably ran together for the next 2K, which really helped because, again, he was running slightly quicker at the time, but then I think because he started a bit quicker, I was able to push past him. I kept looking back to try and give him a bit of a boost if he needed it, but I ended up finishing a little bit ahead. Obviously, his chip time was faster. He started after me, but that really helped, honestly, just kind of seeing a familiar face on the course and having someone to literally run side by side with, like, was really, really useful. And then, yeah, fast forward a little bit. I'm there kind of coming around the last couple of turns with about 500 meters to go. I again, I'm aiming for anything around 85 minutes here. I remember coming into the final straight and seeing the time, and it said like 122. And I've got a heap of pictures that the professional pictures that they take. And man, I got aggressive. I was like I was like just so overwhelmed with, I guess, happiness, that I was like, yeah, like just give absolutely everything. And I don't really like sprint finishes because it kind of dictates that, or it kind of says that you had more to give earlier in the race. But I don't know what I was running on, but it must have been kind of hope and good times, because I literally was just like, I shouted out loud. I was just like, come on, just run, just finish this, keep it within a 122. And that's like a 3-minute PB. And so I did. I sprinted across the line, like full sprinted with about 100 meters to go. Got my time of 122. Nearly felt like my legs were going to go as well. Like I don't think it was a cramp, but I think my quads nearly gave out just before this. But I managed to cross the line 82:31. And I was over the flipping moon, man. Like, I was like, I didn't think that was possible. I was in a little bit of pain, probably for the majority of the run, at least kind of 2/3 of the run, but it didn't really stop me. And all that was going through my head, I was like, that was the most fun I've ever had on any run, like any training run, any race. Like, because Ballarat, I felt dreadful coming across the line. I wanted to die. I was like, man, I just had nothing left. But for this, I literally, crossed line, waited for Rowan to stop, and kind of, yeah, gave him a well done, quick hug to just, yeah, say thanks for the pacing, and had a chat. I was just chatting. I was like, yeah, that was fantastic. I felt brilliant. And yeah, just I actually felt like one of these kids waiting outside school for their mum while I was waiting for the missus to come and find me. I was just there kind of going, oh, where is she? I feel like I'm waiting to get collected here. I just remember being so happy, like not only to finish the race, but to just obviously it'd be nice to have my little one there, but it was just too early and too much hassle. But coming across the line and getting to see your significant other, there's not much else that kind of you could wish for in life. And yeah, it was just a wonderful morning and a brilliant race. And it just goes to show that fitness is really something that is developed. And again, this is definitely my coach, the secondhand words from my coach and Adam, of course, who I'm sure would say the same thing, is that fitness is definitely built up over the long term. Like, it doesn't really matter what happens in a single block or 2 blocks of training. It's what happens over months and months and months and years and years and years. And this really goes to show that I had the fitness there all along. And yes, maybe it would have been a little bit better if I hadn't had the injury or the sickness, but the work was done. And I had the fitness there to get a 3-minute PB, which I was completely wrapped with. And yeah, even in itself, like you get that race done. Even if I hadn't have PB'd, you get that half marathon done, and you're getting a massive, massive training stimulus that then is going to support you in your next race, in your next 2 races, should you be able to recover well from it. So all of that said, I was just over the moon and wrapped with how the race went. I definitely think that now, with going forward, I obviously have my eyes set on 80 minutes flat, if not maybe a sub 80. I think that's on the cards, and that kind of is probably a good time to now talk about what my plans are from here. And then if I've got time, I know I've been going for 45 minutes now, But if I've got time, I can always touch on recovery, how recovery's been this week. But I think really I was kind of on the fence for a little bit about I'm definitely doing a 5K next month. Again, 5Ks kind of, it's basically it's between 15 and 20 minutes of running. It's very or relatively low impact, and it's going to be a great training stimulus. As I was saying, so I've already got that locked in. There was no doubt about that. I would have done that regardless. But I was planning on doing the same half marathon I did in last September, this September. But because of everything that was going on, I was kind of on the fence about it, because a half marathon, yes, it's not a marathon, but it's still a big undertaking, and it's still quite stressful in terms of how the race is on your body. So I was on the fence, but then I finished this and I was like, man, I just love racing so much. I really love half marathons. I think half marathons for me is probably the most ideal distance, because it's enjoyable. You get to it's an endurance race, but it's also not going to wipe you out for the next 2 weeks like a marathon does. So I really, really rate half marathons. I think they're so much fun. And so I was like, yeah, I've got to do the Maribyrnong River Run in September, and I think a tentative goal is closer to the 80-minute mark. That'd be nice. And yeah, just give me something nice to have before Melbourne Marathon in October. And like I said, I'm doing another 5K next month as well, which will be good. So that's really my plan now going into the next months. And obviously, I think it's really going to be really important that I recover as best I can and try and listen to my body and not get injured or sick. I know easier said than done, but that kind of ties into how recovery has been this week. So I actually had an appointment with a podiatrist on Monday. I purposely left it after the race because I didn't know what they were going to do to me exactly. But like I said, I've been having heel issues initially from plantar fasciitis and a bit of bursitis. But what had happened is I had like loads of hard skin build up in the form of like corns, and my basically putting pressure on certain parts of my foot was really, really painful. And so I was like, I need to get this cut out. I need to get this looked at. And so I did that on Monday. I definitely needed Monday and Tuesday off. Just on a side note, like I said, there was a lot of descents in the run, quite quick descents, and because they're quite high impact, I was so sore. Like my quads were in absolute bits Monday and Tuesday. So there was no way I could have run. I even actually tried on Tuesday to go out for a little trot. I probably made it 100 meters, and I literally walked back and was like, yeah, not today. It's just not happening. And so, yeah, I made sure I saw the podiatrist, got that cut out. And I think Wednesday, which is my first run back, like I won't lie and say it was completely comfortable, because my legs felt super rusty, but I was definitely able to run okay. And that was also the first run I'd had without any heel pain in months, because there was no corns, there was no kind of sharp pain from putting my foot down, and where I was able to run normally, there was no pressure on the top of my foot. So it was happy days. And since then that was Wednesday. I went out for 14, which was quite long, but felt pretty manageable, didn't feel too bad. And then Thursday I did 10 with a couple of strides, and those strides were a little bit kind of rusty again. The knees weren't too happy, but I just listened to my body and I was like, I'm going to keep these like a lower percentage of max than I normally go. Again, got through the run, kind of did heaps of stretching and foam rolling as well. And then today, Friday, I've just been out for my first session, and I did just some LT2 intervals, which were, I think it was 9 by 3 minutes. And I was kind of kept my pace around the 350 mark. And I felt fit for these reps, right? So again, I'd say my legs weren't feeling super fresh, and the warm up definitely wasn't fresh. Like I had to really kind of imagine like an old car, and you need to start it up for a little while before it kind of starts running properly. That was me. That was definitely me. So I got through that warm up and then got the alpha flies on, and the reps just felt progressively better. And I was like, yeah, I feel strong today. I really want to be pushing it. And so got a quality session in, and yeah, should be back to normal programming as of in terms of the entire week as of this Sunday. I'll get out for another, it won't be a long run until the following week, but I know I'll get out for another LT1 session, slightly longer reps. Coach David, thank you, sir. Listen to my request to do more of those 2K reps, which I genuinely love. I love just kind of opening up and cruising. So I'll do some of those on Sunday. And yeah, like I said, just focus on recovery and really try to listen to the body and pull back where I need to, if I need to, but otherwise just kind of potentially keep on top of things like foam rolling. I think that does go a long way. In a sense, like it's not the be all and end all, but for me, I think just keeping things loose and making sure that everything's firing up that needs to be firing up will go a really long way. And then, like I said, have that 5K next month, get a good stimulus there, have a hopefully a good half marathon in September, and then look, anything's possible for the Melbourne Marathon in October. And yeah, we'll kind of just take it week by week for the time being. But look, guys, I've now been chatting for 51 minutes, and I think that's just about everything. So if you've made it this far, listening to me monologue, like, well done, first and foremost, because I think I'd even have a hard time listening to myself. But yeah, look, as always, really appreciate you listening to the pod. Normal service, I can assure you, will be resumed this time next week because Adam is back from holiday, and I know that I've been talking way too much over these last few weeks. So I want to hear what Adam's been up to with training and where he's at with his kind of various race preps. So we'll get back into that. But in the meantime, if you have the opportunity to kind of like, share, subscribe, follow, everything else that you could possibly do on social media nowadays, that would be amazing. But otherwise, I hope you guys are all training hard and kind of having a good time prepping for any races you have. And yeah, as always, if you have any questions or have any comments, just leave them because we love seeing them. I love answering questions. And yeah, we will see you guys this time next week. And take care. I'm definitely talking too much now. Yeah, I'm done. Thanks. Bye.